Hey guys, thanks for going on this nerd journey with me. If you want your episodes ad-free, go to makemeanerd.com/join and hit that button.
Hooked on you, baby, you're golden. Time moves, I never noticed. Just can't get enough. Got me wonderstruck.
Hello everybody and welcome to Make Me a Nerd. I'm Mandy Kaplan, a mainstream mom whose mission it is to explore the world of nerd culture that I've been missing out on and slightly afraid of my whole life. I have a very special returning guest today. I love his face. I'm so excited that he's here. He's a dear friend, a brilliant performer and miscast, and the editor-in-chief of Entertainment Weekly. This is Patrick Gomez.
I am so happy to be back. Also, so happy to not be in the Valley. I had to run an errand over in Studio City earlier today, and the 10 degrees change was brutal.
10? It's like 30.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it was awful.
Oh, okay. So when I said, what do you want to nerd out about? We have plans to do more reality TV because that's really your thing. But at the moment, there was nothing in the zeitgeist. And I said, what about going in the Wayback Machine? What were you nerdy about years ago? And you gave me two options. And I like them both. And we're going to do Mighty Morphin Power Rangers at some point. But today, we're doing Charmed.
Yes. The Power 3 will set us free, Mandy.
Uh-oh, we're only two.
Oh.
Should Pete hop on?
Pete should hop on and we'll just chant together and
yes.
It'll be great.
But we can't hold hands, so it's not going to work.
Right.
What is your relationship with Charmed?
I fell in love with Charmed. You know, honestly, I think I didn't actually start watching it on the WB. I started watching it because they would air reruns constantly on TBS and TNT. And I was in love with some of the shows that they would air right after school, USA High and Surfin' USA. I think that second title is correct. I know USA High is correct. I got to meet one of the actresses from it at Comic-Con this year, and I was geeking out because she's one of the voices on the original Avatar: The Last Airbender series. And
okay.
I was geeking out. Anyway, it would come on, I believe, right after that. And I just fell in love with the characters. I am very much a gay man, but kind of had a crush on Alyssa Milano. And
because you have a pulse.
Yes, exactly. And I fell in love with it, and I think part of it was to get, you know, into the psychology of it. I was figuring out myself at the time and was more effeminate than was the masculine standard.
And in
Texas, but really anywhere. This was, you know, the late 90s. Metrosexual hadn't even become a thing that people were talking about. Everyone was very much manly men or you know, a certain way.
Right, but just to point out, you weren't in Manhattan.
Correct,
where
exactly.
It might have been more embraced.
Yes, and so I think that there was something really powerful to see these women exerting their power and yet also their femininity and being taken seriously. At most times they have to fight for it, but that being taken seriously and being considered very powerful. And I think, you know, if I'm looking back, that wasn't something I was processing at the time, but I now think that that's the case. And then of course you get the same thing with the Power Rangers or Disney princesses or Aladdin or any of them, where it's, you know, it's these people that were living these regular lives and then are thrust into realizing that they were meant for something greater and being part of the greater good.
And they're the heroes of their own story.
Exactly.
Which is always inspiring, no matter who you are. But when you are feeling like you're in a tumultuous place emotionally, or you don't know your place in school or wherever, these are the stories I'm learning that just inspired nerds to fall in love.
Exactly. And I mean, look, it started in 1998, which was kind of the height. Like all of the girls at school at the time were, you know, oh, I'm a witch now. You know what I mean? Like witchcraft, and like The Craft was out. It was around, you know, Practical Magic, Buffy, all of that. And so I missed the boat on all of those, and Charmed was just the one that I caught it right on the wave. So I think there was also a little bit of that where witch culture and that sort of thing was big, and this was the one I latched onto from all of that.
Well, I am very much a gay man, and I'm hot for Alyssa Milano. So
There you go.
she is stunning. It's frustrating. The pilot is called something Wicca This Way Comes. And the storyline is reunited in the grand Victorian house of their childhood, a trio of sisters, Prue, Piper, and Phoebe Halliwell, discover they are gifted witches. Little do they know that their newfound powers mean that they are now prey to evil forces. It is such a clean pilot. It is well constructed, funny, sexy, sets up the world so easily. Really, from the moment we see the sisters, we get it. And I find that impressive.
I'm glad you liked it, and it got picked up. Part of it was a cost saving measure, but it got picked up off of just like a 20-minute teaser is not the right word, but they didn't film a full pilot. They filmed a 20-minute sort of experience
Proof
that kind
of
of gave you
concept.
highlights. Yes, proof of concept, and it was picked up based on that.
Was that the one with Lori Rom?
It was. Lori Rom was originally cast as Phoebe. And actually, fun fact: Aaron Spelling, who was the executive producer behind the series, he originally wanted Shannon Doherty to play the middle sister Piper and Holly Marie Combs to play the younger sister Phoebe. And they had to literally show him, because they grew up on screen. Obviously, Shannon had done Beverly Hills 90210. Holly Marie Combs had been on Picket Fences. So he'd watched them grow up on screen, and he was like, no, you're not the right ages for the older sister and the middle sister. And they had to literally, Holly Marie Combs has said that they had to bring out their IDs and show him that they were old enough to play those two characters, and they felt that those were the ones that they should play because they were really good friends. Holly Marie also has a story where she was got in the car with Shannon to go somewhere. And she saw the script in the back seat, and she was like, "Oh my God, have you read it yet?" Because she fell in love with it. And Shannon Doherty was like, "No, it's a spelling production." And of course they had, she left 90210 with a lot of drama, and she was like, "I'll never be considered for it." And Holly Marie had to tell her, she was like, "They sent it to you for a reason, obviously. So they want you." And then, the rest is, at least we'll get into that, but at least 3 seasons of history.
I really don't get the love for Shannon Doherty as an actress, and knowing she's difficult, and tends to self-sabotage all the jobs she got. I never understood. I don't think she's a very good actress, is what I'm saying. And I'm sorry if that upsets you.
It doesn't upset me. I don't know that I ever loved Charmed for the acting in general. Not to say that everyone on it was horrible, but
No, not at all.
But I found the show intentionally a little cheesy, and I found her, I would say, flatness to kind of work and counteract that. But I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I think you kind of, I found ways to justify why maybe some of her acting was the way that it was.
So in your second time on my podcast, I like that you're not disagreeing. You know the rules here.
Oh, I mean, it's any time I'm with Mandy. No, no, I certainly would not be afraid to defend her if I felt otherwise. But no, this is a show you watch for the fun and the effects and the silliness, for sure.
Okay, so you said cheesy. I found this way less cheesy than I thought I would.
Well, okay, the pilot, yes, I think the show gets a little.
All the ones I watched, I thought it would be campier and like, oh boy. I didn't find it that way.
For those of you that have not watched Charmed, for Mandy, I chose episodes that were really important to the plot because I felt like it kind of gave you the grand scope of the story of the series. That being said, Mandy, there are episodes where they end up in an alternate universe that's like a film noir. And it's narrated by a character, and there's like crazy things happening. Or there's another one where they end up in like a fairyland, or it's all a musical. Like there's certainly those episodes, but those are more one-off, sort of where it's a little bit more episodic. I chose the ones that were more serial and serious, for sure, but it was very fun and silly. I might have to send you over a few clips just to show you how silly it could get.
Those sound like fun, and I always appreciate those episodes when, like on Hot in Cleveland, they did an animated musical, or I love a departure like that. There is a lot of soap opera crossover in the casting. Is it the same casting director as Days of Our Lives, or
So I think most of all, they've said that there is something called the spelling jaw, particularly when it comes to men. And like the hair, like he was very particular with who he wanted cast, and a lot of that aligns with the soap opera aesthetic. So I think that that's why you were seeing a lot
oh,
of it.
okay.
But he also likes to pull from his past projects, which some of the people that he potentially was going to cast for other roles in the show, he continued to go back to people that he'd worked with on 90210 or some of his other series. He was like an early Ryan Murphy, where he kind of had this repertoire of actors that once he liked you, you were in. Like I said, even Shannon, if she went through drama, she was back in a few years later.
Yeah. Well, that's nice. I like that kind of loyalty.
Yeah.
This was the biggest premiere for the WB ever.
And not that they didn't want to support it, but the WB was a fledgling network, and obviously didn't is not around anymore. They combined with UPN to become the CW, and they only had enough money to put advertising behind one show a year and one new show a year. And it was Felicity for this premiere. And so Charmed, they kind of were just like, we'll see. Didn't even give it a full season pickup, and then all of a sudden it came out and just exploded, and the rest came to be.
Well, I imagine it has huge international appeal and rerun appeal, and
It translates very well, and you can, like, as much as like I said, I gave you the very serial episodes to watch. There was a lot of episodic nature to it, so you could pop in, pop out. Like I came into it. I remember waiting, because this was back in the late '90s, before TiVo uh, or streaming, that you could find things at your fingertips. I remember because if you watched Charmed, they would air it in the morning and in the afternoon. I think 2 episodes in the morning, 2 episodes in the afternoon, and they were on different cycles. Like one was halfway through season 2, and the other was partially through season 1, and then they would just kind of start over once they got to wherever the most recent episode had been. And I remember like calculating when to tune in to watch the pilot, because I'd never seen it. I'd started like a couple episodes in. And I remember being very excited the first time I got to watch the very first episode.
that's adorable. I'm just picturing a young, struggling with your identity, Patrick, just flipping for this show.
Also, super, super pop culture TV nerd, like sitting there, like calculating, okay, they're out of this episode and in 3 weeks, and then they'll probably take a day off for Labor Day. Like
Oh, I love
it was
you.
great.
Yes. Um, let's talk about Lori Rom and the unaired pilot. She left because of religious reasons. Did I read that right?
It's always been a little unclear. I would venture to guess, because it's so unclear, that she either wasn't getting along with someone or didn't test well enough once people started to see the 20-minute proof of concept. Because if you ask some people, she left because her schedule wasn't, like, everyone gives enough of a weird answer that I feel like the answer was actually that she didn't test well and they wanted someone else. And
Oh,
and
okay. I read religious reasons, but I will give you a fun fact. She is married to my tax guy.
oh, well, then you could figure it out finally all these years later, maybe. Get the big scoop. But yes, I've heard multiple stories over the year. I also know that Aaron had wanted Alyssa Milano, and right, and that the network said, we'll give you 2 of the 3, but we get to cast the third. And so he chose Shannon and Holly Marie Combs. And so they were like, well, we're going to cast this third sister. And then so I wanted to say that Aaron probably found a way to be like, you know what, that's not working, let's go with someone else, and then waited to the last second, and apparently she came in like very last minute.
Well, they had to do a bunch of reshoots,
Yes.
and
Well, they only
you
filmed 20 minutes, so they had to film the rest of the episode too. Like
but you
it
can
was
tell Shannon Doherty's hair just changes so much. It's a wig sometimes it's real. The style changes, the length changes. It's intense.
on the DVD. You can watch the 20-minute, and it's very interesting. Her take on Piper, on Phoebe, is a little less. Ditzy's not the right word. She played her a little more like the other two sisters, a little stronger. And I think the dynamic, particularly the beginning of Phoebe being a little bit more of the like younger, I'm the younger sister, plays a little bit better.
Yeah, I liked all three of them. And I liked that it danced tonally between really intriguing and suspenseful, a little cheesy, soap opera, some comedy. It's hard to qualify and put in a genre, which makes it really fun.
They certainly dance through all of that. I also, yeah, it's like rewatching it, like somebody around them's being shady, obviously, but it could have been any of them. Like anytime there's like a guy that says something, you're like, like that doesn't sound right. Which I thought was really really great. One of the other interesting things is one Aaron Spelling had to promise that it was about these women. Like they didn't want any male characters really, at least at the start, and a character that we'll meet later, Leo. They had to sneak in on episode 3 as like a handyman, and they already knew where he was going as a character, but they didn't tell the network. They were like, "Oh yeah, it's just this handyman that's doing some stuff around the house. He'll have a couple lines," and then like they just kept writing him in, and then like slowly revealed to the network that like, "Nope, we've got all these plans, and sorry, it's a guy."
Wow, he is not my favorite. But I found Leo just to be one note, that he's just like, I'll go to the underworld and see what I can do. That's all he says in the episodes I saw. So,
there's episodes where he shined was his love story with Piper, the middle sister.
yeah, which I didn't see. But fun fact about the pilot, an actor named Eric Scott Woods was uncomfortable saying bitch. So the crew dubbed the word in with a different actor's voice, but it's the same. It's one time they got somebody to go bitch, and then they just used that bitch no matter what this actor was doing. And it's funny that it sounds exactly the same. So I got to notice that.
It's like their Wilhelm scream.
The what?
It's like the Wilhelm scream. It's the scream that was recorded for like early days of filmmaking. It's this man just going, "Oh," something like that. And if you listen to basically any, if you can hear it in basically any Spielberg or George Lucas movie, a lot of people reuse this. It's kind of an inside joke now.
You are such a nerd. Look at
Very
you.
much so.
All right. Well, that's the pilot. The pilot brought to you by Midriff. They are all wearing little crop tops throughout.
Little crop tops.
And there is so much, when I go on like the wiki fandom to see.
Or the Wicca fandom.
I see what you did there. There's so much about the powers and the spells and the terms. Do you know if any of it is actual Wicca stuff, or were they just making it all up and calling it Wicca? Or they didn't really use the word Wicca.
Right. At the very beginning, they were worried about backlash. People saying that they were, devil, like they were worried that would turn people off. And what was funny is they got people complaining of that, like, oh, you're trying to promote the devil and all this sort of stuff. But then they also got people that actually did practice Wicca, and they were like, none of this is actually accurate. Like, what are you doing? So it was they weren't pleasing anyone by exploring Wicca. I think the pun was too good to walk away from. But otherwise, yes, I think if Wicca wasn't in the title, you'd just been like, oh, witchcraft. You wouldn't have tied it specifically to Wicca itself.
Right. Which is a religion. It's not just a trend or a practice. It's like an actual religion. So
yeah. So I think they didn't do themselves any favors by putting it in the title, because they were actively shying away from it. In fact, in the beginning, they tried to show that like they went to church, and they were trying to show all these things about like, no, see that these are good witches, and they're, they can go to church, they can do these things. And then later on they were able to have a little bit more fun.
Yeah. Well, the next one I watched was season 3, episode 22. All hell breaks loose. When Piper and Prue are exposed as witches, Phoebe sacrifices herself to the dark side to save them, but the deal destroys them all. Did I get that right?
You got that right.
It doesn't feel like a good description of this episode, but
I mean, there's a lot that goes on in the episode, but if you had to distill it down to a line, she does it to kind of save them, but also she's, in love with this guy that's being held down there, and there's a lot going on with Phoebe there beyond what you just mentioned, for sure.
So the hot cop from the first one, or the hot investigator, is gone. What was his deal? Ted King.
Yes. So they had a few. There was always like new cops coming in, and other than Dorian Gregory, who played Daryl, other than him, none of the law enforcement lasted long. They kind of were like 1 at most 2 season characters. And when it came to particularly like romantic interests, other than Leo, and for I would say oh god, I'm forgetting his last name, but Julie from Nip Tuck,
Julian McMahon.
Yes, McMahon, who recently passed away, which is so sad. The two of them were really the only 2 men that lasted as well as or as long as Dorian did as well. So the guys kind of came and went, and again, it was about the women, and that was something that they wanted to hold true to as well.
Okay, good. I'm glad he didn't.
But did you miss him?
Get
I guess
kidnapped. No, I was like, where's that hot cop guy? Who was also from Days of Our Lives. Everyone was from Days of Our Lives except Finola Hughes, who's from General Hospital. We'll get to her. Okay, my first reaction, oh, thank God they grew their hair out, because those little pixie cuts were so specific to the late 90s, and it was, it dated it for me. So,
and that was another spelling rule. No one could even put their hair up or they couldn't wear it any differently for the first 6 episodes. He was very much like, the audience has to recognize you and like know exactly who you are, and if they're only half paying attention, they still need to be able to say, this is that character, this is that character. So they weren't allowed to touch their hair for the first 6 episodes. And then obviously over time, they had a little bit more control about what they were wearing, their hair.
What a tyrant.
Yeah,
Now, did Tori or Randy ever guest on Charmed?
I don't believe so.
Spelling, for those of you who are thinking, are Mandy and Patrick just talking about their friends?
I mean, aren't they? No, I can't recall that ever happening, and I feel like I would have.
Because didn't Tori Spelling and Shannon Doherty not get along? Or was that Jenny Garth?
I mean, I don't think Shannon Doherty. Yeah, I think Shannon Doherty got along with pretty much anyone, other than, like I said, her and Holly Marie Combs were really, really close, and remained so in the years after Charmed too. So
it is deeply
there.
Yeah, and it is deeply sad to watch this show, and these people are of my generation. I know you're younger than me, but to know Julian McMahon is gone, Shannon Doherty's gone. It's really, it's disheartening and sad, and too soon. Oh, what I wrote was, what happened to the hot detective from the pilot? Do you know him? Can you introduce us? That's what I wrote.
I will have to figure that out.
And in the first episode, Daryl, the cop, is skeptical and doesn't know what's going on. But by this episode, end of season 3, he is in on it. He knows who they really are, and he is all about protecting them. How did that shift happen for him?
For him, it was realizing that, because when he first discovers it, he thinks they're evil. He's just like, I don't understand this. Like this is, but he starts to see that what they do is good. And so then he starts to kind of help cover stuff up for them. And because law enforcement continues, as we see as the series goes on, law enforcement and they all start to question why people are dying in their house, or why they seem to at the restaurant they work at, or places that they are, like crimes and or deaths seem to continue to happen in very weird ways. And so I mean, story wise, I think they just needed somebody to help that make sense, to get somebody off their back. But for him, it was very much an experience of seeing what they did and how they would do good and help him and help others when they were in need.
And this show is 25 years old, but when the media is haranguing them and outside the house and following them, it feels very today.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, it's interesting though, because I had actually an Uber driver ask me about this the other day, when they learned what I do. She was saying, I feel like there used to be paparazzi everywhere, and you saw all these paparazzi shots and long lens situations and catching people in situations that they don't know that they're being watched, or they're hounding them across the street or walking into restaurants. And she was like, I don't feel like I see that as often. And I think that actually was the case for a little bit. I think social media killed it a little. I think also the average consumer starting to understand how detrimental that could be when you were seeing celebrities getting in car accidents, or having mental health breakdowns because of it. And I think that there was a huge backlash. And I do feel like in the last like 3 or 4 months, though, we've started to see an upswell again of that sort of thing in the media, of that long lens. Like, here's someone on vacation on a boat, and it's like, it's so grainy that has to be taken from a good camera, but from miles away, sort of thing. And it's
I
interesting.
hate that. It's like, I'm on my yacht. I'm just trying to relax with my crystal. Leave me alone.
Crystal is your
Right?
friend, right?
Right? Yeah. Uh, okay, side note, total tangent. I recently heard that there's a theory that Britney Spears shaved her head because drugs can be detected in your hair for much longer than in your bodily fluids, I guess. And she had to submit for drug testing. So that's why she shaved her head.
I I have heard that, and I've heard that since it happened, because she obviously was worried about them taking her kids away. Uh, who's to say what's true? But that is something that I've heard in the mix as a reason for
Well,
sure.
I listened to her book because I'm a thorough investigator. And she claims it's like, everyone always told me what they wanted me to look like, and I didn't want to be their Barbie anymore. So I shaved my head to prove a point. It's pretty flimsy, Patrick.
I mean, it's like Lori Rom leaving Charmed.
It all comes full circle. Back to Charmed, brought to you by Midriff. So Phoebe goes underground to get coal, and that's Julian McMahon. And they have hot chemistry. They have a kiss down there that I was like, woof. I mean, I wouldn't mind kissing either one of them.
Yeah, no, it was. This was one of the major romances of the show for sure, and uh, one that I certainly was very invested in,
Mm-hmm.
for the same reasons.
In that kiss, the music swelled. It's very soap opera-esque in a lot of moments.
Oh, I mean,
That
it's
one
spelling,
in
like,
particular.
it's going to be soapy and fun and sexy, and certainly they checked all the boxes for sure.
What was your relationship with spelling? Was this around the time of 90210, or no, that was before this?
It was, yeah, 90210 and Melrose Place were ones that I definitely missed. I was aware of, but I was watching the reruns of Charlie's Angel. Like, I missed that earlier '90s spelling, but I was at the right age to catch the reruns of the previous era of spelling. So I was familiar with him, and which was interesting for the time, because that was a time before Shonda Rhimes, before Ryan Murphy, before we really knew people behind the scenes. At least Entertainment Weekly readers, like that sort of stuff, would have known. But the average consumer now, I think, knows what the term showrunner means.
That's so
And
true. Like TV Guide would definitely feature the actors from shows, but everyone knew Aaron Spelling's name
yeah, and so
in the
I,
70s. That's crazy.
yeah, so even prior to that, like, I knew Aaron Spelling was the guy behind Charlie's Angels before I even knew Charm. So yeah, he certainly was somebody that was a unique producer in that way, that we knew who he was. So that was mainly my relationship. So again, Charlie's Angels, three women exerting their power and kicking ass, and here we are again.
Yeah. I mean, it really probably started with, should we reboot Charlie's Angels? Yes, but let's make them witches. I mean,
Yes, although I'll give a huge shout out to Constance Burge, who was the creator of the series. She based the fact that it was these three women, and particularly the character of Phoebe is her, and like she had two older sisters, and kind of based the personalities around them. She had a very clear vision of how each one of these three characters should be portrayed, because to her it was bringing her sisters to life.
and was this a comic? I read it was based on comics.
There have been comics since then. There's been
It
comics
wasn't, it
since
didn't start
then.
as one.
Not to my knowledge, but yes, there is a whole comic series. I've only read like one or two of them, but there's a whole comic series that came out afterwards that explored other things where like Daryl gets powers, and like there's like a whole bunch of other really fun stuff. But no, I believe this was an original concept that Constance. I mean, I don't know, witchcraft is how original, but she definitely brought this, not based on a source material. I'm 99.9% sure.
Okay,
Um,
I trust you.
but
You're the expert.
but she also wrote one of my other favorite series of the era. Wrote on my other favorite series of the era, which was Judging Amy with Amy Brenneman and Tyne Daly.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I was a fan of hers as well. Although not like spelling, did not know her name at the time, or that she wrote on that show. It was a spelling show. It wasn't a Constance Burge show, but I now know different.
Yeah, I never watched Judging Amy, but
Oh, it was so fun.
I can yeah, I know the reference. So we're at the point of this episode where the paparazzi's outside. The girls are about to be exposed for being witches because they are fighting crime on the street and a news team films it. So everybody wants a piece of this story.
Can I say,
And
did you notice in rewatching it, I was like, how? Like, you can barely see who they are. It's like at the back of their heads in this
yeah, how
video.
did they find their house?
How did they find their? I mean, I know it was nearby, so I could see, like, I guess if you're a really great journalist or like showing it to the neighbors, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's Piper." Like maybe, but there's no explanation of how it goes from seeing the back of their heads
We need to find
to
these girls. And then
yes,
they're at the house.
yeah. Also,
Yeah.
that van was not like, I know that they were they were busy, but that van wasn't like hidden or around the corner. Like it was right there, so it was a little bit on the girls too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And as the swell of media outside their house is trying to get the story, a wacky blonde neighbor comes over and says, "I'm a witch too. I'm one of you. I can help." And I started typing, "For the record, I don't trust her.
Look at you.
Maybe I'm a witch
There you go.
and
We've
that's
all got a
my
little
gift." Right?
of that.
Turns out she's effing crazy, breaks into their house, and they go like this. And listeners, I'm putting my hand forward in a forceful way, which makes somebody fly through a window. It happens about 175 times per episode. So the wacky neighbor is insulted. So then she comes back with a gun and shoots Piper.
Even rewatching the amount of blood, because that show was not known. Like, yes, there was battles and people would be burst through
People
walls
just
and
disintegrate, though. They just turn to dust, and no, there's not a lot of blood.
exactly, there wasn't a lot of blood, and so I remember like the gunshot, and you're not exactly sure what's going on or who, like, where did the bullet go, and then all of a sudden, there's just all this blood, and that was, I mean, I think intentionally that was really really shocking, and that I remember watching that for the first time, and I remember but even rewatching it, I that was still like caught me by surprise, even though that memory is in my head of that moment.
And I wrote, "Oh God, I'm crying at Charmed. What the fuck?"
And you only watched one episode, one and a
I
half at
had
this
only
point.
watched one before. I thought it was well done. I thought the acting was really great on both Shannon Doherty and Holly Marie Combs' part. I was I don't know. I'm also in an emotionally raw place, so maybe it was just triggering, but I was like, "Oh my god, I'm crying." I really thought it was well done. I keep saying well done, but I did.
And Shannon Doherty directed this episode.
She did. I
Yeah.
That's coming up.
Yeah, there you
Um,
go.
I wanna back up just for a split second. So they show interviews with people on TV, like the neighbors and the people of the town, which is supposed to be San Francisco, but it is very clearly a sound studio or a lot.
Yeah, they've shot a lot on Paramount.
They do so many exteriors of the bridge, and they want you to believe it's San Francisco so much, but it is very much a lot. So in one of the clips, they're interviewing a neighbor, and it's Susie Johnson from 10th grade, right? It's just a little blip, but holy hell, she looks like Jenny Garth. And I said, "Ooh, that's probably not an accident," because Shannon Doherty's like, "Ugh, Susie Johnson," and, like, is
I did
so
not catch that, but I don't disagree with you. That is so interesting.
yep, I'm on the case. Okay, so I wrote Shannon Doherty, who directed this episode, didn't know this was going to be her last. We're getting to the drama.
Yes.
Um, and she was interviewed and said, "I thought I would even come back and direct episodes. I didn't know I was getting let go and that it was as hard of a line in the sand as it was. Tell me everything. What happened, Patrick?"
Well, at the time, now there's a lot more information out there. At the time, you'd have to catch them doing a little bit of an interview on Entertainment Tonight or a snippet. Particularly between seasons, they weren't doing it's not like now where or even a few years later where where TMZ might catch somebody like walking to dinner, or they might go on social media and say something. So the little bits of information we had were small. And I think what's interesting is that it broke the week before the episode aired that was going to be her last one. Watching it, we knew, but obviously that's at least weeks, if not months after they filmed it, that it solidified. But there had become uh, noticeable drama, particularly between Alyssa Milano and Shannon Doherty, and the network was like, you all have to, like, you all in production, meaning spelling and co, like, you all need to figure this out, and it's got to be one or the other. And ultimately it was Alyssa. And I do wonder how much, you mentioned how much she had chemistry with Julian, and I think that perhaps that the fact that there was two people, and I'm not sure what Julian's relationship with Shannon was, but I do wonder if the fact that that relationship was so central to the show was maybe one of the reasons that it was, the decision was her over Shannon. But it was certainly dramatic for the fans, regardless about like how it was all going to happen, because you watch it and there isn't like at the end of the episode there's not a clear, it's kind of open ended. Like Phoebe's down in the, we say down, but I guess it's somewhat down,
She's
somewhat
in the
wherever it
underworld,
is,
right?
is in the underworld. And so there's a version where Phoebe got stuck in the underworld and she's not coming back, or there's a version where Shannon like they left it very open,
Right,
in
and
my
they didn't
opinion.
have to make any decisions because the way they handled it, we'll talk about. First of all, backing up, when you started talking, you said between seasons, and I thought you called it betweensies, and I was gonna end the podcast.
That would be a fair thing to do. One of the reality shows I know we've talked about possibly doing in the future, Big Brother. There was I believe he was from Brazil. He was from somewhere in South America, and he was competing on the show. And he was had been bickering with somebody, and it was silly though, not like screaming at each other. And he was like, "I think we just need to go on a hiatus." And there was this huge back and forth about like, what are you saying? And he's like, a hiatus, like a break. And they're like, is that a non-English word? He's like, no. He just kept screaming hiatus, and then they eventually realized he was saying hiatus. And so hiatus is
Now I'm in
betweensies
the
is
know
now,
on that. Yeah,
yeah, but
betweensies.
betweensies is the new hiatus.
Yes. Uh, but I think that, and you might know differently. I'm not here to badmouth anyone, but everything I've heard about Alyssa Milano is that she's a delight to work with. And I feel like the set might have said, do we get a vote? We vote Alyssa, keep her. And she, both you and I said we're both gay men who were immediately in love with Alyssa Milano on the show. I just think it was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Spelling had danced this dance with Doherty before, so just get rid of her.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that probably also, if I'm thinking about it from a producer perspective, plays into it. Like she's known as the bad girl. Like this makes sense, that sort of thing. But it certainly was dramatic. I will say you can notice in retrospect, knowing that they were not getting along. I do wonder how much of that went into the writing of the fact that Phoebe and her, like they're basically don't interact in this episode, and in the episodes I mean, you could see that sort of like separation of they're not really in scenes together. So you could see it in retrospect, you can see it even on screen.
Well, you had me watch the season 4 premiere to get back to it, and that is Charmed Again Part 1 and 2. Tricky. It was a two-parter. Phoebe and Piper grieve over Prue's death and struggle with the demise of the Power of Three until they discover the existence of half-sister Paige, a white lighter. I thought they handled this masterfully. They just talked about, well, when Prue died, but we didn't see it. It was just something that happened off screen. And I thought their grief felt real. I thought their acting was lovely, and they made it work.
I agree. I mean, everyone was tuning in to see how they were going to handle it, and I think that they totally nailed it. And there was a lot of speculation over how the show would continue, because obviously the whole premise was built about these three sisters and the power of three, and how do you move forward with the show that has been all about that, and then suddenly only has two. The other thing I will say about this, the fact that they didn't really explain a lot other than just saying that happened. And this is still the era pre-TiVo, where they were spoon feeding us a lot more as viewers, because I had to try to find the first episode when it would re-air on TNT or TBS. People thought they had missed the premiere.
Sure.
Like,
sure.
well, for two reasons. One, because they did it the way they did it, where they kind of just are, you jump forward a little bit. But
And
also,
September 11th.
it was, yeah, it premiered. It ended up premiering October 4th. Like, they had to re-air it because it was, dealing 9/11 was obviously still fresh in everyone's minds and on television and everything. So people were worried that they missed the first episode.
I'm good on them. They fixed a problem. And
Yeah.
I thought they made it quite clear. Grams appears in this episode. Has she appeared before this?
Oh yes, Grams and their mom, like they were constant.
They conjure her up.
Correct. They were constantly popping in that sort of way to be helpful in various times or explain things from their past. They did a lot of time jumping too.
I love that Grams basically mocks the whole show, and she's like, just start rhyming. Do a spell, start rhyming. And it's, she's acknowledging that these spells are ridiculous and basic. And I found her very charming. Also considered for the part of Paige, Jennifer Love Hewitt, Charisma Carpenter, Tiffany Thiessen, Eliza Dushku, and Soleil Moon Frye.
Half of them spelling alums. So there you go. He has his girls.
They all would have been great.
Yeah.
I would imagine Charisma Carpenter would feel like, really? More demons and orcs? No, thanks.
Oh, I was going to say, but what did you think of Rose?
I thought she was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Watching her now, Rose McGowan, is such a different feel. I always liked her. I liked her in Scream. I liked her as a young actress. And then I know she didn't do a lot of quality stuff because Harvey Weinstein blacklisted her. And so she couldn't get prestige parts. So that's a shame. I think she's really talented and really fierce.
One of the things I loved as a huge fan of the series was watching also the progression of Holly Marie Combs's Piper, because she went from being the middle sister to being the older sister. And you know, at this stage you don't see it, but maybe you felt it a little bit in watching the final episode I had you watch. But I think she did a fantastic job of evolving into, I am now the caretaker and the leader of the family, and I thought that was I thought that was a really beautiful thing to watch, that character evolve in that way.
She always felt that way to me. I don't know if it's because she wasn't wearing midriff tops and wasn't as flirty, and she was just more grounded. So to me, she always felt like the older sister, personality wise, you know? Have you made a pilgrimage to 1329 Carroll Ave in Los Angeles to the house?
I have not, but it's on my list. I have a list
Let's
of like, oh, I
go.
should do it. Yes, let's do it. We'll do Make Me a Nerd on the Road.
I would love that. I found out that's where they took all the exteriors. I wonder if it looks the same. I did notice that Alyssa Milano, even though I praised their performances, 3/4 of the way through the episode, she breaks down and says, like, I haven't cried about Prue yet, and I'm going to let it go. There were no tears.
Well,
I know
sometimes.
there are tear sticks. They could have put tears on her face. And I've just felt like that was Alyssa Milano thinking, I'm not going to shed one tear for her.
Yeah, I think that might have been something at play there.
We're on to you, Alyssa Milano. I liked this episode. It was twisty and turny. I thought the introduction of Rose into the gang and how she finds out she's a witch and their sister, I thought it was all great. And then at the end, they are in the club. I guess Piper owns a club.
P3.
P3.
This was the age where everything on the WB was also promoting musicians, and they would like tell you what songs played at the end of every episode. Like, in today's episode, you heard, and then it would like give you a name and artist and like where you can go buy the single.
I remember
So,
that. Snow Patrol. I remember.
yes. Oh yeah. So P3 was there a way to do that.
And they're in the club through the whole last scene. And they're talking like this at the table. And there's music in the background, like so soft. And they're able to sit at a club, a dance club, and just have a chat.
Maybe that's one of their witch powers, and they never expressed it.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Speaking of witch powers, though, the other thing that I was really impressed with this, which was the whole, because I know obviously Leo is a character that got introduced in between the previous two episodes and is very established by the
In
time
between these, yep.
in between Z's. But Paige is I would never correct you, but Paige is a half white lighter, not a full white lighter. Because
I just cut and paste from Wiki. So
there we go. Wiki is a big fat liar. Because her mother was a witch and her father was a white lighter.
A dentist.
Yes, a dentist. So her father was a white lighter, which is basically a guardian angel for magical beings. And that's a forbidden romance, which is why she had to be hidden. Yes. Okay. Of course, soap opera. So it's a forbidden romance that was never supposed to happen, because basically it was like your the Grey's Anatomy. It's like your resident, you're an intern and your resident who's supposed to be helping you, and you have a relationship. You know, this was her guardian angel, and she has a relation. Their mom had a relationship with him, so the baby was a secret, which is why no one knew about it, and all of that. So she's half white lighter, which is why she has a little bit of white lighter power, but not all of the white lighter power, which has the powers to heal, and you can teleport yourself. And what I loved, though, is that the powers of the Charmed Ones. This is where I'm going to super nerd out with you. The powers of the Charmed Ones were dictated. And so in addition to the fact that there were supposed to be 3 of them, they also were supposed to have very specific powers. And what I loved is they didn't have Paige come in, Rose McGowan's character, come in and just have Shannon Doherty's powers. She came in and had the ability to move things with her mind, but it was because she had the white lighter bit in her and she could move it, and it was in a different way. She was teleporting things rather than moving them around in like a more dramatic way. And I thought that was a really, really smart way to get around what they had created as a must be part of the lore, but do it in a way that was new and different. The other one I'll say is that Holly Marie Combs Again, this is for those of you who can't see me. Holly Marie Combs has this like motion every time she freezes, or eventually her powers evolve and she can blow things up
It's like you're
rather than freeze
flicking
time.
water off your fingernails. Go ahead.
Yes, flicking water for me. She just like did that in the pilot, and she was like, I had no idea the first time I did that I would be doing that 9 billion times. Same thing with saying the power of 3 will set us free, which is the spell that they say far too often to get rid of a big demon. They were like, we had no idea that would be a thing we would do in half the episodes, and you notice over time they do it less and less because they were like, we cannot do that anymore.
I imagine, especially for the actors, they got to call BS. I love that when I asked you to be on my podcast the first time, you said, "I'm not really nerdy. I'm not a nerd about things." Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
What is the fandom for this show like? Are there cons and role play, and how does this compare to the fandom for Buffy, which is immense, or something like that?
It's certainly like I said, there have been comic books, and there's a rewatch podcast that the character that you haven't met, but basically, spoiler alert, Piper and Leo have 2 kids, and one of them ends up coming back to them from the future. And it's a whole season of like, is he really our son, or is he a demon that's pretending to be our son, and all this sort of stuff. But he hosts the actor who played that character hosts a podcast with Holly Marie Combs and Brian Krause, who plays Leo, where they rewatch, and it's very popular. And they certainly get to go and do all the cons and all of that sort of stuff. Role play, I'm sure people enjoy on their own. I don't know if there's like particularly. I mentioned Survivor, like people go and play Survivor. Like I don't know if people are like showing up and LARPing as charmed characters, but I'm sure somewhere it might exist.
I hope so. And if I could pull off a midriff shirt, I would do it. The last one we watched was the episode 22, season 7, something Wicca This Way Goes, a play on the first one. I did not write down a plot summary, but it starts with the song playing over shots of the city at night, and the song is so awful. And it's called Heartless Evil by the Hero's Lie. And I wrote, God, it sounds like Creed trying to be Dokken. It is awful. And it goes on and on because they're like, look, we're in San Francisco. Do you get it? Do you get it? This was Daryl's final episode. He didn't
Well,
die, but he left the show.
so one thing that I didn't tell you that you may have researched and found out was they thought they were being canceled.
This felt like it. That's what I wrote. I didn't find that, but I said it feels like a series finale. Did they not know if they were getting picked up?
They not only did they not know, like the writing on the wall was, we're not getting picked up.
Okay.
And so this was written. So we'll talk about the plot points, but just now look at it through the lens of, yes, 100% this was written as like our final episode, which is why I chose it as the last one on the list, because I can talk to you about season 8 in a minute, but this is the end. Internationally, this was the end. They actually didn't send season, like when it aired in China and anywhere internationally, for the most part, at least initially. I think maybe now in syndication and stuff it airs, but initially it didn't get sent out to other countries. So
I didn't take a ton of plot notes, and here's why. I started writing, I must admit it is feeling very redundant. They disappear, white lights, bodies being thrown across the room, bad guys disintegrating, the incantations. I guess the 4 you gave me, that makes sense. And now I'm curious to see ones that are departures. Not as many of these witchy tropes. And I watched them all over 2 days. So I was burnt out on the plot. I was just like, oh, really? They can just shoot someone across the room again. Oh, he disintegrated again. It just was a lot of, I'm going to get those girls. Bah, I'm gone. I'm going to get those girls. Bah, right?
Well, spoiler alert, if you felt that way about this, Power Rangers, you're real gonna feel that way. But yes, I mean, it was, as much as it was a serialized series, it was very episodic in the sense of that all that kind of happened in wash, rinse, repeat. But do it in a different setting, do it in a magical fairyland, do it in a film noir environment, do it in the future or in the major past. Yes, I'll have to send you a list of just like really just fun one-off ones in
Yeah.
there.
And Justin Baldoni alert.
Yes, pre Jane the Virgin, pre Blake Lively drama.
Right. He pops up as a henchman, essentially. A very hot henchman.
Yes, he's in there, and Becky Newton from Ugly Betty also.
I used to know her.
Oh, amazing.
Back in the day, she was so sweet, and it's hard to believe someone that's stunning and talented is so sweet. And I knew her brother, Matt. They were very nice. I read that Kaylee Cuoco joined the last season, and I love Kaylee Cuoco. But was she the Ted McGinley?
I mean, so basically what happened was at the point, the reason that they thought they were getting canceled was because that was the writing on the wall. But then the WB and UPN started to discuss merging and eventually becoming what would be the CW. And basically, they didn't want to invest in launching a new series in the final year of the network. And so they were like, why don't we just give Charmed one more season? And then we'll cancel it before we become the CW. So we get this. The final season does introduce Kaylee Cuoco as like a young witch who needs guidance, and they take her on. What I also love though is that this episode ends, which I want to get your thoughts on how that season 7 finale ended. But where basically they glamour themselves to look like other people to everyone. So to each other, they look like themselves and they can go live their lives knowing who each other are. But to everyone else in the world, they look like completely different people. And so that theoretically no one will know that they're the charmed ones. What did you think of that as a potential series ending?
I mean, I liked it because it was allowing them their freedom, and it was touching. I recently did Black Mirror, the nosedive episode, and I love the end with Bryce Dallas Howard in the jail with the guy, and they're screaming, and they can finally be free to just scream their heads off. And I thought, after being persecuted for 7 seasons, it's nice to think these witches could just live their lives
Yeah,
as these other they put in 3 other actresses, but but it's really us. I liked it.
I liked it too. I also love that they found a way for them to nod to Daryl, and you're sending Daryl off knowing that they're actually okay, that they didn't blow up in the house, because what they want everyone to think is they blew up in the house when they blew up the big bad of the final season. And I thought they did a really great job of that. And then they come back for season 8, and what's funny is they have different actresses. Becky Newton does not come back for season 8. They have different actresses playing the glamoured versions of the charmed ones. And what I thought was really smart, because you're like, okay, well, now what do they do? Because they look like different people. Will they just go back to looking like their old selves, or how does this work? And the show was really smart, and they actually kept these new but old selves that they'd created of their glamoured bodies. And if they were walking around and if they caught themselves in a mirror, it was that actress. But if they were just walking around the house or everything else, it was them. And so that was the way that the show was showing you, like, oh, they're seeing each other as themselves, but like other people are seeing them as this. And I thought that was a really smart thing. Eventually that goes away. But there was no budget for season 8. They were kind of just letting it wither on the vine to get through the end of the WB. So they had to shoot everything. Like, it was shot a lot on the Paramount lot, but they had to shoot basically everything on the Paramount lot, which is why you get a lot more like indoor scenes and things. And they had the magic school that got introduced later on, which the magic school in general was like a concept that I didn't love.
Oh, they opened a magic school? Or
they get involved in a magic school, and there was a headmaster, and then then they end up running the school, which again, cheesy. Like the magic school stuff I didn't love, but I understand the show had to evolve and find also ways to shoot indoors and so there was like kind of this like Harry Potter school, which I'm sure also came into play there. They were leading into the
Right.
Harry Potter-ness of that was very popular at the time.
Right.
But they also didn't have money for all of the old main characters, which is why Daryl never comes back. Leo, Brian Cross, who plays Leo, is like gone half the season because he becomes an elder, who are like the ones that like run the laws of magic. He's an elder and is always up like with the or we say up. It's so interesting. We have these like biblical like he's wherever the elders live for most of the season and just like pops in and out. So season 8,
Probably Poughkeepsie.
yes, exactly. Season 8, the show ended with season 7 for me. And that's no shade to Kaylee Cuoco, but it like she came in and was a whole different vibe. And I love her. I think she's very talented, but it just to me didn't match the show. And she was intentionally very blonde and young and like, what am I doing? And the show just was never the same. So to me, the show ended with season 7.
How angry are those actresses that they didn't get to come back and revive their roles?
Yeah, but Janice Dickinson plays one of them at one point. So, they were having some fun with it.
But season 8 didn't happen.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Poor Janice
glamour
Dickinson,
all
she
of that
just got
season.
cut.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I am going to tell everybody my business, and then if you would like, you can share where people can find you. And thank you so much for sharing your love for Charmed with me. I want to tell everybody that Make Me a Nerd is a production of True Story FM. The engineering is by the peerless Pete Wright. My song is Jane and the Boy, Wonderstruck. You can get me on socials at Mandy_Kaplan_Clavens, both with K's on Instagram or on, TikTok and Blue Sky, I think. Yeah, Mandy Miscast. If you are feeling very supportive, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and consider joining the members-only feed, which gets you episodes ad-free and early. You're all hearing the ads now. Get rid of those ads and join and help me keep this mission going. Thank you. Patrick Gomez, where can people find more of you and your delightful writing about the industry?
Sure. Well, Entertainment Weekly has EW.com and Entertainment Weekly or EW on most socials. For my own socials, it's all Patrick Gomez LA, as in Los Angeles. I can never move. Hit me up there if you're a Charmed fan or not. Happy to chat that, or as Mandy said, all things reality TV. And I look forward to being back sooner than later and getting nerdy with you again.
I love it so much. And if you are in Los Angeles and this is before October 5th, please come out and see Miscast. Tickets are on Eventbrite. It raises money for Project Angel Food, and Patrick is performing alongside of 10 other phenomenal performers and me. Thank you all for listening. Until next time.